okay, we're a billable hour profession. At least in family law, everybody functions under the billable hour. And I was like, how are we going to, if this would have taken me 20 hours and it took 10 minutes, what happens to our practice going forward?
Hi, everyone. It's Ruby Powers again, and I have a really great guest, Holly Draper, the CEO and managing partner of the Draper Law Firm. She's a board certified family law and appellate attorney, host of the Texas Family Law Insiders podcast, and she's active on TikTok and Instagram at Draper Firm, and she speaks at a lot of events. And we've got a couple of funny stories about how we got reconnected. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So I was speaking at the State Bar of Texas Advanced Family Law Conference. I was like one of zero basically non-family law attorneys speaking there. It seems like I was talking about the intersection of like immigration and family. And I was at one of those events before during the conference, which is like, you guys really do it really big. And then I saw you it was one of those like suite parties or whatever you call it. And I was like, she looks so familiar. And then and then it finally dawned on me. And then I think you reminded me actually. You were like, yeah, because you were on my podcast. And I think, didn't you send me like a mug and stuff? Like it was many years ago, but it was so nice. And it was before I had my podcast. And so I was really glad to reconnect with you. For the listeners, like we're in different cities. Texas is a big state. We do the same practice area. So we just really hadn't intersected after all those years. And so, but it's a fun thing to know because I feel like podcasting really can help connect people that otherwise wouldn't, connect in many cases. So, well, anyway, tell us a little bit more about your practice and sort of a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I started my firm, the Draper Law Firm, at the end of 2008. I had just lost my job in a civil defense firm. It was bad economy, all the things. And it gave me the push that I needed to jump out and start my own practice. And I started out as a true solo, doing kind of a general practice. I thought I needed to do whatever walked through the door. And a lot of family law started walking through the door. And I never had any interest in doing family law. I didn't take it in law school. Why would you want to be messed up in people's lives like that? I wanted to be a litigator. I wanted to be in the courtroom. And at a litigation firm, that was not what was happening. And so when I started doing family law, I realized this is where I can actually get to be in the courtroom a lot. And at the same time, feel like I was actually helping people, which was not the case in my former job. So over time, I gradually shifted to doing exclusively family law. Um, it took me many years to start growing, but now I have 6 attorneys, 3 paralegals, 2 staff. We are all virtual. I have branched out into doing appellate law. I've had a couple of really big victories in the Texas Supreme Court that have kind of put me on the map as far as family lawyers go. And here we are.
Awesome. And it's also great. I didn't mention the Texas Family Law Insiders. Your tagline is you bring together the top divorce and family law attorneys and other professionals to discuss issues related to divorce, family law, child custody, child support, paternity. A whole bunch. It's a lot more. Okay, and family law appeals. But what's the goal with your podcast? It's who's your audience with the podcast?
So my target audience is family lawyers. And when I started the podcast, I'd started working with a business coach in 2020. I just had a really big Supreme Court victory that I kind of lucked into because I started out as the trial attorney and I loved it. I was like, how can I build up an appellate practice? And we talked about doing a podcast. And, I was thinking podcast as a family lawyer, you're targeting like the end user, the end client. And we sort of work through it. I'm like,
Mhm.
no, if you target other lawyers, that's how they can all get to know you, and you can position yourself as an expert in the field, and you can let the world know that, hey, if you have a family law appeal, you should bring it to me. And it has really been incredible. Not, it has absolutely done that, but it has also allowed me to make so many connections that I never otherwise would have made, because we do it kind of like you do, and we do it all on Zoom. And so I can have people from all over the state, sometimes outside of the state. And I've gotten to meet anybody who's anybody in family law in Texas, and it has made a huge difference in my life and in my business.
Oh, that's awesome. So I think that's what's really interesting because podcasting can be really beneficial to for different means. And in yours is you're targeting other attorneys, but it's to help find those appellate cases. And then, like even in my podcast, it is to other attorneys. It's not to my practice area. So some people might be like, "That's different." But I find a lot of synergies between and talking to vendors or talking to other attorneys and see how they practice, and I learn from them. And you're right. I love all the connections that I make along the way. So we were getting ready to record, and your firm's like 1 year older than my firm. So we're both like laid off, or I don't know. I got laid off twice in '09. It was a bad little time there, and I had only had like 1 year under my belt of practicing, and then I was like, "Woo! I have to figure out how to run a practice." So you had yours for 17 years. What are some of the things that, I mean, this is a big question, but like you've learned or you'd want to do differently, or what you've seen?
So I would say I learned a lot about myself and how you have to lean into your strengths. So when I started working with a business coach back in 2020, she had me do the Clifton Strengths analysis, which I never heard of. And it showed me that all of my top strengths were influencing strengths. And so it was, all right, how can we use these strengths? Like I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year through Facebook. And so it
Uh-huh.
was kind of natural. Okay, you have these influencing strengths. Let's do a podcast. Let's start doing, most recently, lives on social media, and, embracing the things that you're good at. And it also taught me the things that I was not good at, which is one of them, very poor executor, good strategic thinker, poor executor. So now I, realize that
Hmm.
about myself, and I don't produce my own podcast. I have somebody else to do that, because if I had to
Hmm.
do the execution of it, it would never happen. So it's kind of figuring those things out about yourself so that you can do the things that you're great at and you enjoy, and offload the things that you are not good at or that you hate doing, to other people.
You know, I love. I think a lot of people don't see the value of coaches or advisors because I don't know what it is, but I think they can really kickstart an awareness and really grow your practice or your there's different consultants, coaches, everything. I do it for law practice management, but like I think about some of the ones I had in the past, and I learned some really key pivotal thoughts that just like lessons that really helped were instrumental in sort of the growth of my firm. And it's so true about like knowing your strengths and weaknesses and not thinking you have to be good at everything. I mean, it's so exhausting. Like it's so exhausting. And it's not like we can, that's like superhuman. We're not really going to be able to do that. So, so what are some of the other things that you might have done differently or things you've learned along the way?
So, one of the things I think I did differently than most attorneys as they're trying to scale a practice, my philosophy was always to hire lawyers, not paralegals. I had 5 lawyers before I
Mm.
ever hired my first paralegal, because I wanted people that could do all the things that I could do. I wanted people that could go to court, that could go to mediation. If you only hired paralegals, your business could not continue to function without you. And so I want to
Mm.
be able to travel and not come back to a big, huge pile of work on my desk because other people were able to continue to do all the work.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it.
So, and that's really interesting because in immigration, we usually are heavy on legal assistants or paralegals versus in that attorney ratio. And I was doing the opposite actually. And at one point, and it was actually one of my most profitable points, I had like 5 or 6 assistants to me. I mean, it was a lot of work because I was like having to manage a lot, and that was too much. But yeah, it's so that was do you still think that's the best approach?
Yes. And I mean, I don't know. Right now, I'm at 6 lawyers and 3 paralegals. And with the advances that are happening with AI and things like that, I can see, I don't know that I'll ever add another paralegal. I would want to add more lawyers, but I think the need for paralegals is going to go down dramatically.
So you want to talk about, so you've been experimenting with some AI tools and sort of like what you saw there and like what your reaction.
Sure. And I'll preface this by saying I am not a tech person. I heard so many AI speakers over the course of the last couple of years that were just completely over my head. Don't even understand what they're talking about. But lately, I have started to understand how it works a little bit more. And, like Chat GPT is a gateway AI, and started using that personally and really liking it. And I don't know what clicked for me, but there was this realization of, if this is going to change really fast, and if you aren't up on it and you don't use it, you are going to become obsolete or get left behind. And right now we're demoing a timekeeper AI system that like watches your screen and everything that you do, and then creates your time entries for you. We just started using Co-Counsel, which is Westlaw's version of ChatGPT. And let me tell you, it is shocking what this can do. I mean, I do appeals, and I had an appeal. Normal process for me, if somebody is interested in appealing, is we'll get the transcript, and I need to read the transcript, look at the exhibits, do the research, and say, yes, I think you have grounds for appeal for ABC, or no, I think you're going to lose, or it's not worth it, or whatever. So that process, depending on how big the record is and depending on how many exhibits there are, can take many, many, many hours. So I get this case in, it's, property issues, divorce, read the transcript. Transcript's probably like a few hundred pages. Takes me like 4 or 5 hours to read it. There's over 1,000 pages of exhibits. I scan through it just to kind of see what's there. But I mean, we're talking about financial data minutia in these exhibits, bank statements, crypto transactions, things that are very, like, can get in the weeds in a big hurry, but you have to do it in order to figure out if the judge made an improper ruling. So with Co-Counsel, I was able to upload the transcripts, the ruling, and the over 1,000 pages of exhibits. It took it 10 minutes to analyze everything and tell me what one side's issues for appeal, potential issues for appeal are. And it like links you to every single page in the exhibits or the transcript. So if it's telling you that it's at X, you can click right there and it'll pull up the PDF transcript and you can see it. And it, cites all the cases and you click right to them in Westlaw and you can verify it. It was really eye-opening to me of, okay, we're a billable hour profession. At least in family law, everybody functions under the billable hour. And I was like, how are we going to, if this would have taken me 20 hours and it took 10 minutes, what happens to our practice going forward?
So yeah, this like even at like CleoCon a year ago, they were talking about the death of the billable hour. They've been talking about this for a while. And I mean, my area is more flat fee based. I only do hourly for like litigation, but I've been trying to go back to flat on litigation. It's sort of hard to get back over there. I moved in like 2018, but for this exact reason. So then instead of billing for 20 hours, you have to bill for 20 minutes, basically. And then
Right.
it's a game changer. Yeah.
Right. You either need to figure out how you're going to get a substantial increase in the number of clients coming in because they're going to take so much less time, or the model has to change. So I don't think, as far as I know, there are not any family law attorneys in Texas that I'm aware of. Certainly none of the bigger names that are doing flat fees. So I think I'm very much on the radar of how do we figure out what they should be, and when do you pull that switch, and what does it look like if you have all these people used to billing all these hours and all of a sudden you switch to flat fees?
Well, I have a friend and he's been on my podcast before. His name's Bo Atkins, but he's in Canada and his law firm, his family law, it's Evolve law firm. And I think what you do is you look to like the value of what you're doing and you sort of start dividing it out into units and you start making a menu of the different services. And it is a paradigm shift to do that. For example, like with my immigration court, we used to have a flat fee for attending a master calendar, which is like sort of like a calendaring type of hearing, which is usually relatively simple ish. And then there would be the final hearing. We'd have a flat fee for that, and any additional application or any additional prep or things like that. And so the reason why I got rid of it back in 2018 was it was getting to this like, I don't know, it's choose your own adventure type of a thing. If the judge does this and this and that. And I was just like, this is insane. But I think what I should do now is just more like, here's the menu and you have to pay if you want us to do what you need to do. And if you need an application, if you need, I think Bo is being sort of a trailblazer in that space, but I don't know in Texas who's doing this. But I mean, this has sort of been like this battle cry in the practice of law for a handful of years. It just like, and I think before we started, I think you said something like, if you don't evolve, if you don't get ahead of this, I don't know, maybe I'm paraphrasing what you said, but like, I mean, so I think that this is probably a time to make these types of changes because I mean, we're already flat fee, but I'm also thinking about moving my removal business over to flat, but even just everything else of like this sort of like this race to being more efficient and providing better service. And I don't know. I think it also probably lower prices and it'll create a competition in that space. But so what are you going to do next?
I don't know.
You have this realization.
Well, and I think because we're relatively new to implementing these types of AI things in our practice, I don't think we're quite there yet because we need to see how much it can really streamline our day-to-day things. And I was listening to a podcast the other day talking about AI and how because you're not doing these tasks that AI now can do, it does open up your time to do more things that maybe make the clients feel more loved, essentially. Like one of them, their paralegals didn't have as much to do because AI was doing their job, but now their paralegals were calling clients every week with an update about their case. And that the client satisfaction went up dramatically because they were getting this personal touch from somebody at the firm every week. And I don't know that that's what we would end up doing. But I think just thinking of those kinds of things and starting to brainstorm of how do we try to be, as somebody who's not a tech forward person, how do we get to be on the front leading edge of the change to be successful in the end?
Yeah, this is such a great conversation because people are at different stages of their AI evolution, adoption paradigm shift. And like it's like such a buzzword, but it's like where are you? And this the whole the change aspect. I heard I geek out on a lot of legal tech stuff. I'm actually in Austin, which my people who probably see my background looks different because I'm actually at a friend's office for a legal tech conference here in Austin. But I heard that there's this really good book called How to Change by let's see, Katie Milkman, and there's a forward by Angela Duckworth who wrote Grit. And I'm listening. I'm still at the beginning part of it, but basically, there's this article from Steve Embry, who's a legal tech writer, and it's just like, okay, yeah, we got AI and stuff. I'm paraphrasing again, but he's like, but like people, it's hard to change. It's hard to change, and I was like, yeah, I know. Like I went to Red Lobster today, and they had changed their menu, and they didn't have the salad dressing I wanted, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's like that article he wrote. Like I
And
have
I
to
think
deal with
as
change.
lawyers, like lawyers are notoriously behind the curve for change. But I listen to a lot of law firm management podcasts and stuff. And one of them I was listening to last week was talking about they projected a 60, maybe 60 to 70% reduction in the need for lawyers and paralegals of the work that they do with AI in 5 years. And I was like, all right, that's a really fast, that's not
Yeah,
far away. So
yeah,
we don't have time to wait a few years while you dabble in it and learn. It's like you got
right.
to dive in and get going.
Yeah, it's like even Richard Susskind's keynote a few weeks ago was about we might have AGI in like 5 years, and like I might be wrong. He's like, but you should prepare for that anyway, because what if I'm not? And I'm like, whoa. Then I was like having this whole existential crisis that whole weekend after I heard that. But yeah, exactly. So I think like in your situation, I would probably start calculating what would you look at other maybe averaging out rates for what you've previously done and start thinking what your new rates might be if you were to do a flat fee. And then I think the other thing I hear from you, and I'm doing the same, is that I don't really plan to add any more people to my team. I probably just want to repurpose people as much as possible, and so that they. I like that the story about the assistants that called the clients, and I think that's also the big shift we're hearing is like that using the technology to sort of automate all the mundane and repetitive activities, but then to try to lean into that human side and what really differentiates your services from others. And I think that's pretty much the race right now is to do all of that as soon as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah. And
Yeah, we're
this is something I definitely also want to be better at and implement more automations to do exactly what you just said, where get those mundane tasks flowing without people lifting a finger so that you can focus on the things that you can't automate.
yeah. And I think like we were mentioning like the more we can have our systems in place, the more we can automate, the more we can make our firms saleable if we ever wanted to do that ever. But that's like what a lot of business owners talk about is to work themselves out of a job or depending on how you look at it, like you shouldn't have created yourself a job, you should create a system that you as opposed to having a job. But right, the more it sounds like you got full of attorneys because you were like, I want them to be able to do what I do so I can get away. I think I chose assistance because that was sort of more that sort of model, I think, in immigration. But it sort of worked until it didn't, and then now I'm having a hard time finding attorneys to do some of this work, but we're leaning into more on contractors. But then I'm also thinking like we can do so much work more efficiently, and sort of change the way we work. And so I don't want to add any more people to my equation until I figure out how to reimagine my practice. And so that's what we've been working on too. So you have your podcast. I mean, I think you regularly speak. You're a leader in your space. You're board certified. What are some of the things you're planning to do in the next few years with your practice, or some of your goals as you're continuing with your 17-year-old practice?
So I think next year I'm hoping to apply for board certification for appellate law. I think there are
Oh,
something like 12 lawyers in the whole state of Texas that are double board certified in family law and appellate law. And I was looking at the requirements recently, and I've done all those things. So it's just a matter of applying and passing the test. I'm not excited about that because
nice.
the family law test was a beast. I don't know how, if the appellate test is equally bad, maybe I'll change my mind, but that's one of my goals. Um, I'm really have a very long-term goal of making my business saleable. It's not that I would necessarily sell it, but someday I'm going to not want to be running my law firm. And whether that's other people within the firm or that's somebody outside of my firm that wants to buy it, I really I feel like if I focus early on how to make my firm worth the most in a sale, it is going to be worth the most to me for as long as I am running it. And it is going to be something that I am not having to kill myself doing, because I'll have all these systems in place and people working for me, that the things that make it valuable to sell make it valuable to me as an owner, to be able to travel the world and do the things with my kids that I want to do and have the best of both worlds.
I think so. We're Facebook friends, so I've been watching some of your posts, and so you have is it like a college age or a senior or something? I have a seventh grade and a ninth grader.
I
So
have a senior and a sophomore in high school.
Oh, okay. You know what I was realizing? It's like, so if I push really hard, like I might be able to, I don't know, do more of what I want to do when they're in college. But then I was like, but then they're going to be in college and like they're going to be out of the house. And I was like, this is sort of bad timing. Like, I don't know. I feel like this whole timing of when you're more present and when you're really busy. And I don't know. I feel like it's hard, even like as a law firm owner, because I know some people took a back seat to their career when they were maybe their kids were a certain age. I've also heard people say you really need to be present when they're teenagers. I don't really know what the secret sauce is, but
Well, I feel like I started my firm right when my daughter was a baby. So she just turned 18. And by owning my own firm, I have had the freedom to be there for all the things. And there's not a job in the world working for somebody else where you have that kind of freedom. And so, I would not go back for all the money in the world to change the timing and all the things that led me to starting my own firm. And I've always been work smarter, not harder. And I've never been the type to burn the midnight oil and work on the weekends and do all the things that, make people hate their jobs. But I have managed to be very financially successful in building my firm. And a lot of that, I think, was by hiring other lawyers.
mhm.
In order to be financially successful with growing a firm, I feel like you have got to have other lawyers working for you. That's where you just exponentially.
And do you think that'll be the same if you eventually go back to flat fee or go to flat fee?
I sure hope I got to figure it out,
Yeah.
because, part of if you are a solo, flat fee, and you can really figure out how to streamline things, flat fee is a way that you can, hopefully, that the goal would be to make a lot of money working a lot less. But how does that jive with having other lawyers who are no longer having to bill their time? And I don't know. definitely running through my mind a lot of how does this work and how can you make it a win-win for everybody? The lawyers that are working for me, the clients, we want everybody to think that this switch in the end is a good one, and figuring out how to get from here to there is top of mind.
Yeah. We just sort of calculate how much something should be and keep that in mind. We still keep track of time for the most part, so that we can see, is somebody taking advantage of our flat fee and that type of thing. But yeah, it is a transition process. But I love what you said about so then we did, it's almost this, well, similar thing. But I started my practice before I had my kid. So he's about to turn 15 and my firm's turning 16. So but like I agree with you. Like I was able to like do all these crazy things, like run my law firm from Dubai or work from the NICU when my daughter was sick and born, and I don't know, just like take a break and go to Turkey for a little bit or go to Mexico for a little bit, or here I am I'm driving to Austin and then I'm going to be here for a few days. Like they're bigger now, so I can do these conferences and things. No, but I agree with you, and it gives us a lot of different freedom depending on how you build up your practice. Well, I feel like we've probably done a lot of similar things, but we had different practice areas. We were in different big cities in Texas. But we both were running our firms around the same time, after the Great Recession and everything, and sort of figuring out how to make it all work. And I do agree with you. Like, I think things are rapidly changing. And I'm trying to tell people, like, if you put your head in the sand and you just pretend like this isn't happening, like, it's not going to do anybody good. And I think the attorneys are trying to retire and adapt. They either got to, pass it off really quickly, or they need to start putting on, adapting to the technology to make it more sellable. Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's STAFI.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off. Well, Holly, okay, we're getting to the rapid fire questions, the fun facts. All right, so my first question, because I love board games, is what's your favorite board game?
It's not exactly a board game, but I love to play Texas Hold'em poker.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. That is allowed as an answer. Does your family play as well?
Yes, during COVID, I taught my children how to play poker. But
We did
over the
too.
years,
We
it's
did
kind of
too.
been a fun social thing that my husband and I have done. And when we've moved to different neighborhoods, we've started poker groups in the neighborhood because it was just a good way to get to know people. And I think I like poker because it makes you feel like you have a little bit of control and that your brain has to come into play and it's not just chance.
Yeah, I
Even
love
though
games
it's
that have a
definitely
good. Yeah, I love games that have a good amount of strategy and not as much luck. I it's a good ratio. Same thing. We taught the kids poker during the pandemic. I sort of grew up sort of this like more conservative-ish background in terms of like we weren't supposed to play cards or something like a long. It was like, oh, so like I felt sort of like, oh my gosh, can we tell our family we taught? But actually, it was my sister and my brother-in-law was teaching us, and so it was like we would like have our little pod together. And then the funny thing is, I actually wrote a whole little blurb in my book about how like what you can learn about business from poker, and statistics, chance, bluffing, negotiation, maybe, I don't know, or talking, facial expression. But anyway, so that's okay. I like that answer. Acceptable. Okay. I secretly judge my guests based off of their answers. So I'm saying that out loud for the first time. But anyway, after like 80 something episodes. No, but that was a good one. What do you consider your superpower?
So I kind of already talked about this a little bit, but I think my influencing skills are my superpower. I'm, as much as I kind of wish this wasn't my superpower, but I'm very good at using Facebook and social media to network and connect with people and get them to like me and trust me and want to send their friends to me when they need a divorce or whatever. So I think I've been very successful at that and very intuitively good at doing that.
Awesome. That's definitely essential to be a rainmaker and to have a thriving practice. Okay, so this is a different type of question, but sometimes people think of it similarly. But what is a habit that you know that contributes to your success?
Habit. This is just a little thing, but if I did not do this, then I would fail miserably. Very first thing I do every day when I sit down at my desk, pull up my calendar, pull up my phone and my alarms, and I set alarms for 2 minutes before every single thing on my calendar because I am at the stage in my life where if I am just like, I don't remember everything anymore, I have to be reminded that I have a call or that I'm on a meeting or whatever. And so I have to do that every single day, first thing, so that I'm ready with enough time to run to the bathroom or get a drink or whatever right before I'm supposed to be where I'm supposed to be.
That's a good tip. When I had an in-person EA, like their job was to like make sure I'd stay on schedule or something. But now that we're all virtual, it's like, doesn't really work. And I might not be paying attention to wherever they're chatting me or telling me what to do. But you're right. It's sort of funny how you have to like make sure we have time to go to the bathroom and get water. I've actually thought about putting a water like dispenser like in my office so that I don't barely ever have to leave, because that's one of my excuses to have to go walk to get anyway. But I haven't done that. What is a favorite podcast or book that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
So, my favorite book, which I'm currently trying to convince my children to read, they're teenagers, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I, yes, I own a law firm, but I am a lover of all things business and all things real estate, and a very firm believer that owning businesses and owning real estate is how you can get wealth and freedom. And so I'm trying to teach that to my children as well.
That's awesome. I took a little break, but I was reading like about 19 finance books this year. And I didn't realize how many Rich Dad, Poor Dad books there are. But there's like, what, 4 or something? I don't know.
I don't know. I've only read the original.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a few of them. And I was reading them in the wrong order, apparently. So then that was starting to get a little redundant. Like, oops. I was like ChatGPT, like, what order am I supposed to read these in? Anyway. No, I maybe we need to do a carrot thing. Like, how can we get our teenagers to read these books? Like, that's a really good idea. Cause like, I want them to read the success principles. I read so much stuff like you, and I'm like, they need to read this. Like, this should be required reading in my
Right.
household.
And I look at them, I'm like, you guys live a really good life because of the business that I've
Stuff we
built
did.
and I'm around. It's
Yeah.
not like I'm working 50,
Yeah.
60 hours a week at an office somewhere. I'm here for you guys. Like, if you want the life that I have, which I know you do, you should take my advice and read this book. It hasn't worked yet, but
Okay.
someday.
Okay. I might have to like withhold Starbucks for my daughter and I don't know what video games for my son. If I don't know. I might have the
I
carrot or the
think I have
second
my
one.
husband on board. And so he thinks that we
Huh.
should have a family book club and talk about it at dinner.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's where we'd gotten to, but then it's sort of like we didn't get all the way there. Like we were going to do that. I think that's the best way, but you have to like make it happen. Yeah. Like it's like that whole thing you said about like having the ideas versus the execution. Like, I mean, I think they say that execution's everything, but okay. So listeners, let's try to improve our game on teaching our kids good business habits. Like next time I'll try to report back on how we're doing, because this is a good reminder. Well, thanks, Holly. Well, how can people find you and connect with you who are listening and watching?
Sure. Our website is draperfirm.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Draper Firm. Just search the Draper Law Firm pretty much anywhere. I also have the Texas Family Law Insiders podcast, which is on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
Awesome. So we talked a lot about AI and tech adoption, the change in the billable hour, best practices in having our firms and growth, and sort of went all over the place. But I mean, I think ultimately it's like, what does it take to some of the musings and the thoughts of a sole owner of a practice that's 17 years old and still adopting and adapting and excelling. And that's wonderful. I love hiring more of these types of stories, and I know our audiences as well. So thanks so much, Holly, for joining us, and thanks everyone for listening. You know where to find us. If you enjoyed this episode, tell a friend, give us a review on one of the places that the podcast is found, and share it with others. And you can find us on the school community, the Power Hub, and we're putting out a lot more resources there. And of course, you know about the Power Up Your Practice book available on Amazon. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.